Welcome back to the Dojo Samurais. This is our Samurai Lab, lesson 11. I think this is probably the last lesson of the basic course. Today we'll be looking at ggplot2, a library that is used for making some very beautiful graphs. Some people start learning R with ggplot2. Instead of looking at the data analysis part, I decided to do it the other way around, teach you first the basics of how to create, how to analyze your data, how to create functions and all this stuff. And lastly, going down into ggplot2. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. With that said, let me make this full screen. I don't want to make the mistake I usually do. For the last two videos I made that mistake. And we're gonna be doing we're gonna be using ggplot. So let's first load our libraries. We're gonna be using the tidyverse, and here it says ggplot2 has been loaded. Okay, so it's already there. And then we're gonna be using a data frame called empty cars, which we kind of used a little bit last time to make some modification with our custom function. So we're gonna be using empty cars again. So let's create a new section. Let's call this ggplot2. Remember to make a section, you add the 4 hashtags at the end. For a comment, you need a hashtag. Okay, now we have our ggplot. Ggplot, there we go. ggplot2 module here, or section. And next we're gonna be getting some data. I said we're gonna be using empty cars, so let's call this empty cars df empty assignment operator empty cars, and then we should be here. So we're gonna be looking quickly at it. We have here like vehicles, then we have miles per gallon, cylinders, displacement, a lot of information in here. Okay, so let's save this. And now we're gonna start making a ggplot. So the first thing we need to do is create a ggplot object. So we're gonna make ggplot like this. Then we're gonna use plus sign, and then we're gonna be selecting a geom. So how do we do that? How do we, well, there's many geoms. For example, we can use geom. You see there's lots of them. We're gonna be using geom point, okay, which is, you're gonna see how it looks like, so don't just wait a bit. We're gonna be using a geom point. Now when you're creating a ggplot object and a ggplot graph, you need to pass some data. Now there's two ways of passing that data. You can pass it straight at the ggplot, or you can do it inside the geom point function. We're gonna see how that looks, okay, because with one you only need to pass the information basically once, and with the other one you need to pass it down to every single other object that you have, that you create. So let's take a look first at when you pass the whole thing together. So let's say that you say data equal to empty cars df, and then you need to provide a mapping, and mapping has inside aesthetics, AES, and those aesthetics are basically things that you can pass. For example, what's your x axis, what's the variable for the x-axis, what's the variable for the y-axis, what's the if you have so let's say the legend or the shape or color, what you want to paint, or change different things into your ggplot. So that's aesthetics. So we're gonna say AES, mapping equal AES aesthetics, x equal, and what do we have here? Let's say that x equals, or yeah, let's say miles per gallon, and then y is gonna be equal to displacement. This doesn't really have to make any sense. I'm just making a graph just for the sake of making a graph. Okay, so we're gonna say mpg and displacement. Okay, and then we're gonna say color equal, let's say cylinders. Yeah, cylinders. Let's see what we get. And then if you notice here in ggplot, you don't use a pipe, you use the plus sign, but it's kind of similar to how the pipe works. So if it makes it easy for you, just think of it as working as a pipe, okay? But don't try to use a pipe with ggplot because you'll probably get an error. So let's see what would happen actually. Let's see like this. I think it'll should probably get an error. Then geom point. Well, let's see. Yeah, see? It says did you use or instead of plus? And yes, we did. So yeah. So we're gonna be passing all this stuff right from the get-go, and this should go directly into geom point. Let's see what it generates. So on the right side here, on the plots tab, it's the first time that we use it. We see, of course, MPG, displacement, and this is a very simple graph. It's missing a lot of elements that you might want to add. For example, a title, maybe you want to change the labels here, maybe you want to change some other things. But generally, it's here, right? MPG, displacement, and cylinders. It's a continuous variable, right? Which is kind of strange because, you know, you could say that this is a categorical variable or use it as factors, which probably would give it a different view of how this looks like. If we check with str empty cars df, we'll see that, see, here we have cylinders is a numerical, right? So that's why it's a continuous variable. It's saying that, hey, you know, we have all these different range of values from 4 all the way to 8. If you want to treat this as a factor, which is a categorical value that has specific categories, right, you would need to transform that information, and we're gonna do that, right? Okay, let's do it right now. So we're gonna be saying like this, empty cars. We're gonna go back to line 286, and here what we're gonna be doing is a mutate. You should be acquainted with this function by now. Then we're gonna be changing, I think it was cylinders, so cyl equal as that factor, which will change our data into a categorical variable, and then let's say cylinder. Okay, if we do this and we rerun this, there you go. Now you see that it's beautifully colored by 4, 6, or 8. So basically what we did there was change our continuous variable that was numeric into a factor. So how does that look like now? If we look at here, if we do again str empty cars df, we'll see that it's now a factor with 3 levels, right? 4, 6, and 8. 4, 6, and 8. So remember, sometimes if you're trying to plot by color, or here for example, you can also say shape equal cylinders, then you can also see what happens, right? It's basically giving a shape and a color to those different elements. Now I said that you can do this with basically by passing the information directly in the ggplot call, or you could do it down here. So let's replicate this same information, but instead of giving all the information here, we're going to pass it down in here. What's the difference of doing that? If you pass it just to the ggplot object itself, then any subsequent call that you make for the different geoms, you don't necessarily need to put anything inside. I prefer writing just the ggplot object like this, and then even though it's a little bit more redundant, I like to know exactly what I'm passing down to each geom point. I know it's but in the end, you know, it's your personal preference, right? To what you want to do. So we're gonna say the exact same thing, data equal empty cars df, mapping equal AES, the aesthetic, x equal mpg, y equal displacement, color equal cylinder, shape equal cylinder. Okay, so let's see. By the way, let's delete this, because otherwise you might think that nothing's happening. There we go. And it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Which one do you prefer? I think I leave that up to you. I personally like this one because it makes it very, very clear for me. And then you can continue to pass down different things. Now, you're going to be asking like, well, Victor, okay, thank you for telling me that. But how many graphs, types of graphs are out there? Well, a lot. And the ggplot is a quite extensive topic, and it's really very, very difficult to explain everything in just one session. It would take us probably several classes or lessons to do that, and I'm not gonna do that, because I think all you need to know is the basics of how it operates, and then you'll be able to just spread your wings and go solo. In case you want to know or get inspired by different types of graphs, you can go to the R graph gallery. So we're going to be doing that. R graph gallery. Actually, let me close this. R graph gallery, first one, and here you'll see lots of, well, I need to get probably something to block ads. Here you have lots of different graphs. You have distribution graphs like violin density histograms, box plots, bee swarms. You have correlations, scatter, heat maps, correlogram bubbles, connected scatter, density. You have bar plots, radar charts, word clouds, parallel lollipops, circular bar plot, tables, stacked bar plots, tree maps, donuts, pie charts, dendrograms, circular packing, waffles, evolution, like area, stacked areas, stream chart, time series, line plot, maps. You can also create maps, flow, chord diagram, network, Sankey, arc diagram, edge, bundling. Basically, a lot of stuff you can do. And not only that, you can also do some 3D graphs, interactive graphs, animation. It's so many things you can do. If you ever wondered how certain outlets or news outlets make such beautiful graphs, or make like those graphs that show a company and how it's making money from the net, and how everything is spent, like a Sankey, for example, like this, and you ever wonder how they make that? Well, I'm not saying that they do it with ggplot, but they could. I mean, it looks, some of them I look like, I think I've seen this before, right? So yeah, there's lots of things here at the art graph gallery. So I'm not gonna be going through all of that, but please make sure that you know this domain in case you need to create different graphs or get a little inspired. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back here. By the way, if you click here zoom, it'll open a new window, and you can see your graph here. Very, very basic stuff. If you click zoom there. Okay, now I'm probably gonna comment this one out. Remember, if you want to comment, you can use Command Shift C on Mac, or Control Shift C, I think, on Windows. But yeah, you might want to check that one related to Control Shift C, because I don't really know. I'm just assuming. Okay, now we have our ggplot here. What else can we do with it? Well, first of all, you'll notice that it's gonna kind of missing some stuff, right? It might be missing a label. So how can we add that? Well, same as with everything, you add a plus sign at the end. Then you're gonna say, for example, and this should probably remember, let's change first the X and Y labels. Okay, so if you want to change the X label, you're going to type X lab, and then we're going to type in here, let's say, miles per gallon. Then we're going to do another plus sign, y label equal displacement, and then let's re-execute this code, and there we go, miles per gallon displacement. But we're still missing that that title, right? We want to have something in there, so we're gonna do another plus sign, and here we're gonna add something called labs, and here we're gonna say title equal to let's call it my first ggplot ggplot. Let's re-execute this, and there you go, you have my first ggplot, displacement, miles per gallon. So all pretty interesting stuff. Next, we're gonna say that we also want to, if you ever want to add a caption, a way in which you can do it is actually also with the labs. Right here you can say labs, no, not labs, it's caption. Caption equal, let's say, car engine information. Let's call miles per gallon versus engine displacement. And there you have now a caption. So I think this one's probably cover most of what you might be looking at. Of course, if you're graphing different things, you might need to look up for that particular information. You can also, let's say, your x-axis could also be dates, and then you can also format dates accordingly. You can also change the orientation of you know, of the x-axis. Instead of being like this 10, you can just rotate that 90 degrees. We're going to see how to do that, because that's something that usually at some point you will want to do, especially if you have very long names. Right now it's just numbers, so it's easy, but if this were a name, you would be like, yeah, okay, this is not gonna fit. Right, let's say for example that we have, I don't think we have, yeah, it's okay. So how can we rotate things around? We're gonna do that. Let's say here theme, and then we're gonna say axis dot text x equal element text angle equal 90, a vertical adjustment of that label itself of 0.5, and an h just of 1. And there we go. We have 10, 15, 20. And this is a very useful thing to know if you're wanting to change that orientation of your labels, which I guess at some point you will definitely want to do. Next, you don't necessarily need to stop here. For example, here we have a ggplot object and we only did one geom, but you're not just let's say you're not limited to only one geom. You can add more than one geom. Let's say that we want to add here a geom, let's say geom text, and then we're gonna say, ooh, I don't know if this is gonna work, but let's say x is equal to mpg, and oh man, yeah, we'll try. If it fails, no, I don't think this is gonna work. Okay, let's not use a geom text. Let's use, instead of that, a geom smooth. So a geom smooth basically will give us a trend line, right? We're gonna be using geom smooth, and then if we just do it like this, I don't think it's gonna work. Yeah, it's not gonna work because we didn't do anything. We didn't pass anything. Up here it would have worked. So for geom smooth, we need to pass everything again. So we're just gonna copy this whole thing. Then once it's ready, we run it again, and then there's no, let's say there's no shape here. Let's remove that one. There we go. And then you have and by the way, here we need to say method equal, I think it's lm. There we go. Otherwise, if you just leave it like that, it'll just use whatever method it wants. So let's see what that looks like. Geom smooth. Yeah, see, smoothing function to use accepts either null or a character vector, lm, glm, gam, lows, or a function, e.g. Blah 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 blah. So basically, you can specify what kind of method you will be using for your smoothing function, right? I just used lm in this case, and that's why it gave the following graph. And you see that it's very interesting because we added this element geom smooth, and that's why ggplot is so cool. We added this geom smooth, and basically we created that geom smooth by category, right? We have one for 8, one for 6, and one for 4 cylinders. Very, very nice. Each of them independently. So that's pretty cool. Very, very, very great, I would say. And then you can continue to add things. Let's geom. Yeah, let's try the geom text. Let's see what happens. Let's see just what happens if I leave it like this. Yeah, we need y. Displacement. Okay, I'm missing a parenthesis. Expected. Unexpected error in there it is. Yes, it's here. That's what's happening, and then now it should be working. Sorry about that. And then let's say label equal, and this is where it's not gonna make any sense. Let's say HP. Let's see if it works. Okay. There you go. It did work. Now we have the HP of that particular data point, right? So that's also pretty cool. But I think it's way too big, right? So you can also adjust the size. I believe the size can be adjusted outside of the aesthetic. So the mapping size. Let's try. Let's try with 1. Ooh, yes, it did work. Just it was a bit too much, huh? Let's try 3. 3. Maybe 2. 2 might be there. Yeah, 2 seems to work. Yeah, 2 is kind of okay. I mean, as an example, I think it's more than enough. I think it works pretty well. So you see, we created here a ggplot object, and basically we've put 3 graphs, 3 geoms on top of each other, right? We have geom point, geom smooth, geom text. We have our labels and everything's looking great. It's very, very easy to make very, very good looking graphs. You're also able to change, I think, the theme. So let's see. Well, I think we might have to leave that for another occasion. Let me close this. Or maybe we can just try. Let's see what we have here. I think they're all pretty basic ones. Well, let's see if this one has. Yeah, these are all. Okay, let's see. Theme. It says theme ipsum. Let's see what happens. Theme minimal, let's say. Ah, there we go. So yeah, you can have different themes. You can also, if you look into it, you can also make color blindness friendly graphs with the Viridis theme, right? So there's lots of things you can do. In this case, I really like the standard ggplot graph or theme, which is this one. I think it's pretty nice to look at. It provides very good contrast. So I'm just gonna leave this one over here. Now the last thing you might want to do with ggplot objects is to save it, right? So to save it, contrary to using a plus sign here, well, there's two ways to save it. You can, one, save here, save image as, and then save it in there, or click export, save image as, save as PDS, copy to clipboard. You can see here, or you can actually do something better. I don't like using this export over here. I like to do my saving in the actual code. So there's something called gg save, and then file name, we're going to be calling this my first ggplot. And let's see what we need to pass to ggsave. So file name. Okay, we have our file name. Let's say .png. Then let's say we're gonna be passing our plot, which is equal to our last plot. Then I think we need to, let's see. Yeah, device here. Let's plot device equal png. Then we're gonna be doing, let's say, a width equals 10. Let's go for 10. Yeah, let's go for 10. Well, let's go for 12. We're gonna be using centimeters, okay? Not inches. Let's go for 12 centimeters. Let's say with 12, height equal, let's say 12 units equal cm. And I think DPI, well, let's see, I equal, you can also change your DPI, and let's see if this works. Hopefully it does. There we go, my first ggplot.png. So let's see how that looks like. Let's go back to gallery. And here we have our ggplot. Exactly as we saw it there, we have our graph exactly. I think this should be like 12 by 12 centimeters. This is a PNG as we specified, and this is the name also, my first ggplot.png. Or you can also do, for example, SVGs, I believe. So what is an SVG? It's a vector graphic file that you can use. That's also very cool. So SVG, let's see if it works. Oh, there is no package called SVG Lite. Okay, so this is good. If this happens to you, then it just means that we need to install SVG Lite, which is a package. So let's install that. Install the dependencies. Okay, that's done. Let's try it again. And there we go, SVG. So let's look at that. Oh. Yeah, it's gonna be opening it. I think I need to open with... There we go. So here it is. This is an SVG, which you can basically scale, because it's a vector. You can scale it to as big as you want or as small as you want, and it's very, very good to use SVGs. I actually recommend using the last thing you should use is probably a JPEG, followed by a PNG, and the best, I would say, it's the SVG, because also the file size is much smaller. Take a look at this. You have PNG, which is 116 kilobytes, and then you have the SVG with just 37 kilobytes, right? So I'm gonna be closing this one and then going back to our ggplot. So let's save this. Okay, and I think that with that we can basically finish this lesson, and that basically concludes the basic bootcamp for R programming and dealing with your data and creating very amazing things. If you've been following up until this point, well, first of all, congratulations. I think you have a lot of dedication for making it this far, and that should be, of course, commended. With everything that you've learned so far, you should be able to just start building from there. Of course, I'll continue to make additional courses so that you can continue to utilize all this knowledge that you already have and further expand it into even more amazing things. But with everything that you've learned so far, you should be able to hold your ground and do some things that will just make you incredibly efficient at analyzing data, at graphing that data, working extremely efficiently. You'll be ahead of the competition by a significant amount. Imagine, you can just create these graphs, load the data, it'll generate it for you. You can load your analysis, save it as an Excel file. We've done so much, and that will definitely allow you to just have a very, very solid foundation from where to expand to, whether you want to continue that journey here with me at our SamuRai Lab, or if you want to go somewhere else. I think you're more than ready. It's it's been quite a pleasure, if you've been staying this long, taking classes from me. So I really want to thank you for that. With that said, please remember to save your work here. That's it. We're gonna be closing this basic session now, and what are we gonna be doing next? Probably we're gonna be looking into our Markdown, which is to generate reports, right? Markdown documents. We're gonna be looking into that for a couple of, maybe 1 or 2 sessions. I don't know, but that's our next immediate topic. And I hope that if you stayed this long, I hope that you will join me for that second part of the journey, because we still have a lot of things to go through. We're going to be looking at our Markdown. We're going to be looking at Flex Dashboard. We're going to be looking at Shiny applications. We're going to be looking at making your own library of functions and your own package that you can use locally. so many things that we're going to be doing. It's very, very exciting. And this basic course basically gives you everything you need to know so that we can continue tackling more complex topics. With that said, well, that's it. Thank you very much for your time. And if you feel like you need to rewatch some of the other videos, please go ahead and do that. It certainly helps. Remember, if you enjoyed the way I teach, then you enjoyed this course, please tell your friends, recommend our SamuRai Lab, tell everyone, and of course, like and subscribe. With that said, that's it. Class dismissed. See you next time. SamuRais.